Curt Hennig is not with the company here. He's going to leave in the spring of 94. He's going to be gone for a little over a year. He's going to come back in late 95 and do some commentary. And he's doing an interview somewhere in this era where he's saying that he's not coming back because he has a set price to return and McMahon didn't meet his price. Technically, he's under contract through mid-November, but Meltzer's going to say that he knows for sure Ric Flair wishes that he could join him in WCW, but at least that won't be possible till November. But we know Kurt's actually going to pop back up a year later in the WWF. At this point, he's probably got his Lloyd's of London settlement. He doesn't need the money. Is he just enjoying some home parent time, some family time, or was there a more frequent dialogue to get him back in the ring?
No, Curt had a great deal. Curt had his Lloyd's of London deal, and Curt didn't need to wrestle. So why would he go and jeopardize that anymore when he was getting a good, steady income from insurance that he paid for? And in order for him to try to make a return, he would have had to forego whatever that settlement was with Lloyd's of London. And Curt wasn't interested in doing that for a few reasons, monetary, but also risk of injury. If he was going to go back in and risk his body again and take another injury, then he's now lost the money that he would have gotten from his insurance, and he would have lost the money from potential work as well. I can't say I really blamed him. Would have liked to have had him back. I think that he could have come back physically, but from a performer point of view and from his standpoint, man, that Lloyd's of London deal, that's what it was for. And he used it. You know, the one guy you mentioned, Ric Flair. Shit, Flair, if there was anybody that could have used it many years ago, was Ric Flair. And he never did because Rick just had that ping that he had to perform. Right. Rick just couldn't help not performing. He'd make less money performing than he probably would have made collecting his Lloyd's of London.
Yeah, it's interesting because this is a guy who, I mean, you talk about Curt, his career, I mean, he's still in the prime physically of his career. He had a lot left in the tank, and we're going to see him wrestle a little later, but by then it's not the same Curt, right?
No, not really. And I think it wasn't the same Curt because of a little trepidation. I don't think Curt wanted to suffer the same injury he had before. He was in an awful lot of pain. And frankly, he didn't have to work the way that he used to work.
Sure.
He was still as good as pretty much the best out there at half speed. I throw Curt Hennig in the same category as I do Shawn Michaels. You give me half Shawn Michaels and he's still better than, guys at full speed. But Curt had that pride too. But at least Curt was smart enough to go, okay, I can dial it back. And I can get through it and I can still be Curt because he still had the wit.
Right.
He still had the knowledge and he still had the psychology, which that's the one thing a lot of guys are missing.
Early May, you guys do a tour of Japan. We've talked about this before, but I'm still fascinated by this Japan tour and how it came together. It goes down on May 7th in the Yokohama Arena. You guys draw 8,056 fans, but it's a capacity of 17,000. So, there's less than halfway full. And this arena supposedly has never drawn less than 8,000. So you beat that mark, 8,056. The next day you're in Nagoya, probably said that wrong, on May 8th. And you announce 6,735 fans, but local folks say probably closer to 2,500. The next day you're at the Osaka Castle Hall. You've got a 15,000 capacity. You're going to draw 7,000. And the final night of the tour is on May 11th. It's a 10,000 seat arena, 2,300 fans. What do you think was amiss on this tour of Japan here? Because you're running 50% or less in most of these arenas. Did you just was your television there not strong? Did you not use enough local stars? Did you have the wrong local promoter? Why was the Japan tour here just a little off?
Well, because we did it with a Japanese promotion there, and this was during the time of, and I'm sure Dave Meltzer and all his cohorts and buddies will dispute this because they're the experts, because they know everything about Japan. But it was sponsored shows, and the way that the Japanese ticket structure was that sponsors basically bought the shows, and then you would get your tickets from sponsors. A lot of them were either free tickets, or you would go in at discounted tickets and they sold the tickets. The promotion itself was paid for the events. The promotion itself was not the promoter. Okay. In this case, we were basically a booking agency that they paid for us to come over and put on shows for them.
Right.
Some of their stars and what have you. So what we did, and what we were paid is not reminiscent of what they drew and what they were able to bring people in to see our event. And it just wasn't a good synergy. It didn't work out well. I don't know if there wasn't enough Japanese talent on the card of recognizable. Our TV there at the time was Star TV. I believe it was Star Japan. And it was, we went on, I think it was with Tenru's group and another group in the optical world folks at that time, that they wanted to get into the wrestling business, just like a lot of the sponsors and different people in the old way of doing business with New Japan and All Japan had done for years. So it's, in many ways, a lot of times you hear about these grand houses in Japan. Well, when you're talking about some of the buildings, they sold out. Those are 1,200 seat arenas. These are smaller arenas. These were big arenas we were running, and they felt they could draw them with the WWF, just the name alone. And there wasn't a lot of promotion any more so than what was done for the smaller Korakuen halls and things of that nature. So it was a different way of doing it. Perception wise, I don't know that whatever the one where they say we only drew, they say 7,000, but they really only drew 200, shit like that. I believe that's probably highly exaggerated in the opposite form to fit their narrative, but it wasn't stellar business that made us say, well, shit, let's go back there and get our ego boost.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson here to tell you a little more about what AdFreeShows.com is all about. Get early, ad-free access to more than a dozen of your favorite wrestling podcasts every single week, starting at just $9. That's less than 20 cents an episode each month. And yes, you can listen to them all directly through Apple Podcasts or your regular podcast apps. How easy is that? Ad-Free Shows also has thousands of hours worth of bonus content and docuseries like Title Chase, Eric Fires Back, Conversations with Conrad, and The Insiders. Plus new series like The Book with David Crockett, Monday Mailbags with Mike Chioda and Nick Patrick, and a whole lot more. And you want to talk about early? You can't get any earlier than listening to the shows live. You can be a part of the live studio audience as we record the podcast. Plus, ride shotgun alongside your favorite childhood heroes for live watch-alongs, Q&As, and other interactive experiences every single month. Come on now, see for yourself what thousands of other wrestling fans from around the world have discovered, that AdFreeShows.com is the best value in wrestling. Check it out today, and hey, when you do, the first week is completely free. AdFreeShows.com.